Hi again, everybody. Our guest on this month's episode of Let's Twist Again is the Croatian sensation, Mate Kozul. Mate was an unsung hero of the 1996 and 1997 Twisters. We're excited to finally have him on the show. Now, we've had guests from England to Mexico and Indiana to Texas. And for this one, we go all the way to the other side of town here in Phoenix, Arizona. That's where Mate grew up and where he has been living for many, many years. Mate, how are you, my friend?
Great, great. Just got back from Europe. I did a 3-week vacation in Croatia and Rome, and I'm happy to be back. And I'm very excited to do this podcast.
You're a world traveler. Now, speaking of that, you were born in Chicago, but you grew up here. How did you get from here to the? I know it's kind of a law. People from Chicago have to eventually wind up in Arizona, but how did you get here and when did you start kicking a soccer ball?
Well, my dad had back problems, and he immigrated from Croatia to Chicago, and he sent us on vacation. His sister moved to Phoenix, and he sent me and my sister to Phoenix on vacation, and then we never went back. He loved the weather so much, and the dry air helped his lower back. So we went to, I think in second or third grade, we left Chicago for summer vacation, and we never went back. So it's a little crazy story.
People who come here in the summer don't always stay, but you did. How about when did you start playing?
Well, my dad said the rec coaches would ruin me, so he individually trained me when I was 7, 8, and 9. And then he took me on my first team when I was 9. So I did individual shooting, dribbling, passing with him. My dad played in Croatia, but didn't play at the pro level, but started a family, had to immigrate out of Yugoslavia. So that cut his career short, but he had a really good background. He played for the Chicagos and the Croatians in Chicago, which they've won the U.S. Amateur Cup a couple of times. So he's got a very good background.
The National Soccer League in Chicago is a great league, right? I mean, there's a lot of great teams there.
Yep. The Polish, yep.
Yeah, all those, a lot of ethnicities, great stuff. So you were a basketball player as well. You're a tall guy. People can't tell now because you're sitting down, but you played at Camelback High. Here you are dunking over someone who just that day learned how to play defense in basketball. When did you figure out that it wasn't going to be pro basketball for you, but it might be pro soccer, might be your future?
Well, my high school didn't have a soccer team, so I had to learn how to play basketball quick, and I was 5'10" as a freshman, and I grew 2 inches every year. So everybody in my neighborhood played basketball. My best friends played basketball. So my only choice was to play basketball. By my junior year, I made varsity, and we were happened to be ranked #1 in the state. And our point guard was player of the year, was recruited by Lute Olson at University of Arizona. And so I got to play on the #1 ranked team for basketball. I got to play with all those athletes. And I almost went to college for basketball, but I was a way better soccer player, but we didn't have a high school soccer team. So that's how the whole basketball scenario went.
So you obviously must have been playing club, and that led you to Yavapai Junior College. Now, for folks who don't know the geography, Yavapai County is the next county north of Maricopa County here, where Phoenix is. Yavapai has a great soccer tradition. You helped start that. The top team here in white that we're looking at is the 1989 Rough Rider squad that won 15 out of 16 matches. Boom, right out of the gate. And that team at the bottom in gold is the 1990 squad that won the National Junior College Championship. You're about the tallest guy in the back row of these as well, though there's some big lads back there as well. How did you wind up at Yavapai, and what are your memories of those 2 years?
Well, I played on the state champion team for Cisco Lightning, and we beat the Cisco Hellions, which were the 2-time defending state champs. And then I got recruited because of that. So I was on the state champion club team, U19. Then the actual Yavapai team was built up of the best players from both of the state champion teams in Arizona and the state championship team from Nevada. And we also had 3 or 4 international players, one from Norway, one from Italy, and one from Jamaica. So we had a international flair with players from state champions from Arizona and Nevada.
So they say junior college, but this was a big time program and still is, isn't it?
Yeah, they've won 7 national championships. We won the first one, and the team got inducted into the Hall of Fame about 10 years back, and we also just got our rings. So we had a ring ceremony about 1 month ago. The school couldn't afford the rings, so after 30 years, more than 30 years, the school actually bought us rings, and we had a ceremony. So it was a great ending to that.
That's very, very cool. Better late than never. So after that experience, you had a chance to go to Europe. You mentioned you just got back from vacation in Europe, but you got to go there to play, which in the early 1990s was not something a lot of Americans did. But I'm guessing with your heritage, you had the opportunity to go there. You played in Belgium with KBC Westerlo, as we say, and in Croatia with Rick Jeka and RNK Split. How did you manage that? What was that experience like?
Well, after the Sand Sharks, when agents saw us play, and me and Edson Rico, the star forward for Yavapai, and he got us at a tryout for a team in Belgium. Edson signed right away with that team, and then there was a higher level team that needed a defender. So I went on a tryout. In the first 3 games on the tryout, I scored a goal on a corner kick, which probably was due to my basketball abilities.
Right.
But so I scored a goal in each of my 3 test games. I signed a contract with Kingdom of Football Club Westerlo in Belgium. The coach was from Ajax. It was a big deal. I was probably the first player from Arizona to sign a European contract. This was 1994. And then after Westerlo, I went to Croatia, played half the season for Rijeka, and then the other half for NK Split. And that was my European tour. My 2 years there was a long time, especially there was no Wi-Fi, there was no cell phones. So I really felt like I was on the other side of the world.
Right. Absolutely. And you had, obviously grown up here in the States, so it must have been a culture shock thing. You mentioned the Sand Sharks. That the Continental Indoor Soccer League started in 1993, and one of its charter franchises was right here in your hometown, the Arizona Sand Sharks. You actually played in the very first game in league history against LA United in 1993. Here you are. Were you excited about getting the chance to play professionally at home?
Well, the Phoenix Suns just built a brand new stadium, America
Right.
West Arena, and the Phoenix Suns had to be playing in the NBA Finals versus Chicago Bulls. So Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley were using the same locker room as we were.
That's cool.
It was all state of the art. So the first game, we didn't know what to expect. So we were excited. There was 10,000, close to 10,000 people. We were, we didn't know what to expect. The sound effects, the announcer was from the Suns, the whole staff, the athletic trainer. So everything was first class. It was the NBA owned league, obviously. And Jerry Colangelo would come into our locker room and give us a bonus. So I was a hometown player. So playing at America West Arena, playing pro soccer, I felt like I was the king of the town. So.
Yeah. Now, obviously, indoor is big here because in the summer it's really kind of hard to play outdoors all the time. Had you played a lot of indoor growing up?
I played, but when I was 15, the practice facility was 15 minutes from my house. So I would play 3 games a night. I would ask each team, do you need a player? And they would say yes. So you have to pay to play in these leagues, but I was good enough where they needed an extra player. So I would play 3 games every night. And I did it like 2 or 3 nights a week. And then when I started playing on the state championship club team, my dad made me decide you can't just play indoor with the men three games a night. You got to be serious. So when I got onto my club team, I stopped playing indoor, but I had a very good indoor background.
And that paid off. Now, the Sand Sharks were not very good. Our research staff is the best on the show. We've uncovered video of a 22-year-old Mate Kozul playing for the Arizona Sand Sharks. Look at that guy. Look at the hops. That's the guy that we know right there. Number 5 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts. Now, we mentioned you played for some great coaches. Ron Newman, the greatest indoor coach ever. What was it like playing for him?
Well, every pregame, we would have breakfast, and he called it tea and toast. So he did the pregame speech, the tactics, what we were going to do that night. So that was something different. So he had a very English flair. He was a player's coach, so very intense, but he knew the indoor tactics, obviously from all the San Diego Soccer's championships. He was a Hall of Fame and legend in indoor. So playing for him got me a little bit of experience before I got to Indiana.
Now, the Sand Sharks were never very good at all. You had a 16-game losing streak the first season, never had a winning season or made the playoffs, but that opportunity must have taught you something about how you could compete at the professional level, didn't it?
Yes, that was my stepping stone to Europe. So I was a big guy, 6'4", 200 pounds. So a lot of people said, hey, indoor is for smaller, quicker players. So that's why they sent me to Belgium and went to Croatia. But once I got back from Europe, obviously Indiana was a great choice.
Yeah, we will get to that. With the Sand Sharks, you got to play with some guys that you'd grown up with around the valley, like Donnie Gaylord and Rick and Randy Soderman, Dave Cameron. But when Jerry Colangelo sold the team to new owners in the spring of 1996. They opted to take a year off and regroup. That left you without a team, but not without options. You were telling me you had opportunities potentially to go back overseas or to go in what was in the A League. MLS was just starting. What was that spring of 96 like for you before you got to Indiana?
Yeah, so I played the first season with Sand Sharks. Then I played the beginning of every season, 90, 94, and 95, because I was back from Europe. And then I was actually in Croatia, and I was going to sign a long-term deal with NK Split. And Dallas of MLS drafted me as a discovery player in the first ever Dallas Burn team. So I had a choice, stay in Croatia or go to Dallas. I took the next flight to Dallas. I was there for a month, played 3 preseason games, and then they signed a big player from Boca Juniors, and they had to release 3 American players. So me, Steve Keller from Indiana, and another player got released, and that's when my player agent sent me to go try out for Indiana Twisters.
Now, the legend is, and this may not be true, the legend is you just showed up and no one knew you were coming. How true is that?
They might have not. My agent was a big agent, and I never talked to Jorge Espinoza, but I felt I was in shape. I was strong enough. I just came from an MLS stint, a short stint, but we had a great team in Dallas. I was there for the first game at the Cotton Bowl, like 30,000 people. So going back to the indoor game, I felt I had a little bit of background, and I had a couple of years experience in the CISL. So I thought I could contribute right away. But I think Jorge and the Indiana Twisters had no idea, and I had no idea who Jorge was or who was on the team. It was a blind. I was on a plane and landed, and I had no idea what I was getting into.
Always ask people about what that first camp was like. You had guys with some experience, and you had guys with a little bit of experience. You had local guys. You had guys who knew each other because they grew up and played against each other in college, and you had guys who were literally introducing themselves to each other at off the wall. What was that first camp like?
Well, for me, the best way I can explain it is the Mexico tour was folded.
Right.
So the best 5 players from Mexico City and their coach went to Indianapolis. So I got to play with the best 5 players from Mexico City and their coach, and then a sprinkle of international players, some local guys from Butler, from Indiana University, like Matt Coyer. So I think what was great about it, the players from Mexico City brought up the skill level, and the college guys, like even from great schools like Notre Dame, Indiana University, Evansville, they looked like rookies compared to these international indoor players. So I looked like a normal white guy, but I was a European flair, big strong defender. But I really learned a lot from Mariano Balela and Rajano and Alejandro Moreno. Those guys were amazing.
Everyone we've talked to says that first camp was really hard. Like it was for someone it was like the hardest camp they'd ever been to. What was it like for you? Just the intensity of that.
Well, the conditioning was the hardest that I ever took place in any country, Croatia, Belgium, Arizona, anywhere. Jorge ran us to death because he wanted us to be the best team, the best physical condition in the whole league. So we would run 45 minutes on Butler University. Then we would run interval training up a hill until we almost threw up. So we would do 1 hour of conditioning, 1 hour of functional training, and then we would do 1 hour of playing. So every practice was 3 hours. And so we would stretch after that. We would be soaking wet. So I was in the best shape of my life playing for Jorge and the Indiana Twisters. And it was the hardest preseason camp that I had to go through.
So it paid off. At least you guys were the fittest team in the league. The first game obviously didn't go well in Detroit. I remember this. Do you remember this? In that first game in Detroit, something happened to your jersey that didn't make it, and you ended up playing at least the first few shifts in a Twister T-shirt. Am I remembering that correctly? Do you remember that?
Maybe, something might have went wrong, and I had
a lot of those things happened in that first year. A lot of weird stuff happened.
I have bad memories in Detroit with Andy Chapman. So when he scored a goal, they played Superman on the big screen, and he actually did a bicycle kick the first time that I got on him. And so the next time I got on him, I had to get on him closer because I never knew what he was going to do.
And I am looking. That is an elusive game tape that I'm looking for somebody to find, because that game is kind of the holy grail that I'm looking for. We got a lot of games, a lot of Twister highlights, but even though the 8-2 result, was not good, there's a lot of great stuff in there that we hope will see the light of day. But let's go to the home opener. So when the Twisters first hit the field at Market Square Arena, June 21st, 1996, against Washington. And it was a good crowd, over 5,000 in MSA. After Jim Gabarra scored in the first minute, Derek Marcano scores here to make it 2-0. What were you guys thinking? You lost the first game and you're down early.
Well, we knew we had the skill with the leadership of Mariano Bolela and the goal-scoring ability of Alejandro Moreno. So Rich Ryerson was a great leader, great captain, Terry Rowe. So we had great veterans. Our young guys were coming together. But I think, being a new team and having young players, you make little mistakes on set pieces, on subbing. All those little details get ironed out as the season goes. So we were confident, but we didn't know what to expect. And Reza was great, quick player in the box as well.
No doubt. It was a back and forth game that ended up going to Washington 7-6 in overtime. You actually scored a goal in the game that could have been the game winner, but the Warthogs scored with 25 seconds left to force overtime and then won it in overtime. That was kind of the way those first several games went, right? Great efforts, really close, and then disappointment. But you had to think, well, we got something here. Maybe we're getting closer and getting closer.
I think it's similar to a brand new quarterback in the NFL. He's a star. He comes into the league and he might be close his rookie year, but the veterans outsmart him, and we just were missing maybe one or two players, which ended up happening the next year. But I think that's a good way to explain it. Is we were right there, we were just as good. Just a couple little things made the difference.
Now, we talked about some of the coaches you played for. Luis Dabo, a legendary youth coach here in the Valley of the Sun. Ron Newman, you mentioned you had no idea who Jorge was. We talked about the training camp and his conditioning. What was it like to play for Jorge?
Well, he was very demanding. And the goal that I scored in that game, I was so angry at him. And when I did score, the whole team came out and dogpiled me because they felt bad for me because he was on me so bad. Because my job was to cover the best player on the other team. And he demanded a lot from us. And especially he demanded a lot and he got a lot out of us. I think one time in practice, I was passing the ball and it was passing with a little bit of a bounce. And he broke the clipboard on his foot and he yelled at me, and he wanted me to pass the ball straight on the ground with no bumps, no curve or whatever. And after that, I did it, but it just took, he demanded a lot from us and he got a lot from us. So, but, I didn't understand the method of his madness, at the time, but as a coach, as a youth soccer coach and a college coach and a former pro coach, I used a lot of his tactics and his halftime speeches and the intensity at halftime. We almost fought with each other at halftime because everybody wanted to win, and he got right in your face for every play, and he demanded a lot and he got a lot.
We ask everybody, tell me about the diet and what a change that was.
That was big for me because when I came to preseason camp, he always said too much pepperoni pizza. And he knew as a big guy, I needed 2 weeks to lose 10, 15 pounds and get quicker and lighter on my feet. So when we would go to Olive Garden, we were not allowed to have breadsticks. And I love breadsticks. So the players, we would sneak the breadsticks under the table. And we weren't allowed to have protein with carbohydrates. So if we had like chicken, we had salad and lemonade, no soda. If we had pasta, it was salad and lemonade, no bread. So we didn't mix carbohydrates with protein, and that helped us digest quicker. And I was skinny. I was 175, 185 at Indiana, as quick. And a lot of it had to do, and a lot of us didn't get injured because of that diet, kept us healthy and kept us light on our feet.
And that's the thing. This wasn't just Jorge exercising control over you guys. He had a scientific method for this that he had learned over the years. And everybody has said, yeah, this actually made a lot of sense. And it actually did help. And you're living proof.
He actually tore his ACL, both of his knees. So he had a nutritionist. And so this was a scientific thing. And it was way before its time. I mean, nowadays people have lots of diets and nutritionists. But back then, we didn't. This was very new for all the players. So we trusted him. We believed in him. We thought, we didn't know what if it was true or not. But now that you look back, it is very healthy to eat clean and not mix carbohydrates with proteins, and don't drink soda, don't have a lot of bread. So I think from his knee surgeries, he had a lot of great information. I actually took a shot at a pregame and dislocated my tibia, and he knew right away what it was. He sent me to the chiropractor. Chiropractor adjusted it, and I was back the next day. So he had a lot of experience with injuries and indoor injuries is mainly.
Yeah, and he credited chiropractic with extending his playing career for a while, so he swore by it. I remember that. This is Let's Twist Again. It is our monthly deep dive stream and podcast about the Indiana Twisters of the Continental Indoor Soccer League. My name is Ken Tomash. His name is Mate Kozul. Mate, you were a natural forward, but you switched to defender, and your task most nights, as you mentioned earlier, was to mark the other team's most dangerous offensive player. You mentioned Andy Chapman. There are some others. Who are some of the toughest indoor players that you had to defend?
Well, Zezinho dos Santos was Monterrey. He was a big outdoor professional. His kids played for Barcelona, played on the Mexican national team. He was very good. He was tough to mark one-on-one. Andy Chapman. Tattoo was the hardest one. Alomo from San Diego Sockers was very fast. So every night I had a different type of player, but the Tattoo was you couldn't stop Tattoo, but you could contain him and slow him down. So my rookie year, I would put my body right on his body, and he would spin me. And so I learned quickly to take a step back, put my hand on his back, and I was 6'4", 200. He was maybe 5'6", 165.
Yeah.
But a strong 165,
Yeah.
and a Brazilian. So once I learned a little bit of that and how to slow him down, and I always needed extra help and double teaming, as this picture shows. Balella coming in the slide, and me and Balella stopping Tattoo in this picture. That's an awesome freeze frame.
You've mentioned, you can only hope to contain him, even though he had 24 points in 7 games against the Twisters in 2 years. If you figure if he got 3 points on you that night, it could have been a lot worse, because he did a lot worse to a lot of people.
Yeah, he broke my nose. I don't know if you remember, but
yeah,
I would mark him the whole game, and he got frustrated one time and elbowed me like we were both on the ground, and I broke my nose. I still have a little crooked nose today, as you see.
Now, I want to ask you now about some teammates, specifically some guys who you played at the back with in Indiana. You give me your point of view on the type of player they were and the type of teammate they were. Let's start with Rich Ryerson and the late, great Neil Gilbert. What did those guys bring to the Twisters as players and as teammates?
Well, I'll start with Neil. God bless his soul. He passed away a few years ago, but he was the most intense. He's the type of guy that when he's on your team, you love him. But if he's on the other team, you consider him some people would say dirty player. I would say, he gets away with what he can. And he was very intimidating. So having that, guy that would intimidate and be a big bruiser, he always would get a 2-minute penalty. But when he did get a 2-minute penalty, he made it worthwhile. And so, but Neil would come to me and give me confidence. He was Argentinian. And you, as you saw in the World Cup, a lot of the Argentinian defenders are very offensive. So Neil had very good footwork, and he would bring the ball and start the offense from the back. And Rich Ryerson was a textbook leader, former UNLV soccer player, was the coach of UNLV for at least 15 years, just captain wherever he went, on and off the field, sort of taught us how to be great men. Not only soccer players, but me and Rich are still friends today, and I have nothing but, I learned from the best. Neil Gilbert, Rich Ryerson, Carlos, and yeah.
Oh, very thoughtful, very insightful guy. You and Carlos had played together in the U.S. National B Team Pool West Region team before he came to the Twisters. Tell us about Carlos's game and about him as a teammate.
Well, I was coming from Arizona, and I made the U.S. West Regional team. And Carlos SoCal comes out with Carlos and 3 or 4 Latin guys. And I'm like, in Arizona, our Latin league is a little strong. And I'm like, well, these guys, how good are these guys? But what I didn't realize is Southern Cal has the hottest, best Latino players in the nation. And Zavala, I think his father played professionally in Mexico. And when I first met him in Florida in the U.S. National B Team pool, and I thought he was an amazing player. And then I didn't really have any contact with him until when I played with him in Indiana. But I was struggling one game. There was 10,000 people in Houston, and he told me, "Look, just slow it down. Just start playing simple." You know, because sometimes when you're nervous, and I was more of a defender, and these guys were pressuring really hard, and he was very good, very calm on the ball, and he just told me to calm down, play simple, work out of my slump. So he was a coach on the field as well, and he ended up coaching as well after, and he's a U.S. Soccer Federation coach as well at the moment.
Now, he wore number 2 the second year. You wore 2 the first year, but you switched to 15. Was there a negotiation that went on there?
No, no, that's another thing is when Carlos came, you know, I knew my rank. You know, I was a blue collar. You know, my job was to cover the best player on the other team. He was a high flying defender that we just got in a big trade. So he was a big time player coming in, and he wanted my number, and there was no negotiation. So I told Jorge, here it is, no problem. So I actually took number 15, which was my college Yavapai number, but I had no problem giving it to Carlos. But a lot of players probably would have bruised their ego. But like you said, this team was a very special team, hardworking team, a family. With Jorge's conditioning and tactical, we had actually, our tactic was to leave the last defender by themselves with two forwards. So what we did is when the other team passed the ball back to the goalkeeper, our two forwards pressured, our midfielders stepped up. So any short ball we smothered. If they happened to kick the ball long, my job and Drew Callahan, our job was to cover two forwards, but that ball was coming from 30, 40 yards away. So as like a free safety, while the ball was in the air, we would go to the player that was going to, and then everybody else would recover. That was our secret. Our high press was taking chances and believing in each other. So that was, I'm giving a little bit of Jorge's secret away, but that was one of them. So
You will see that many times in Twister highlights. You'll see that high pressure and turning defense into offense, because he knew that he had a team that was less experienced than other teams, at least at the first year, and hoped that you could at least stay with those more experienced teams by that kind of tactics. And it actually worked. And you mentioned Drew. So let's talk about this guy, Drew Callahan, who was a really key and underrated, I think, addition to the 97 team. Very versatile player, long-legged, long-limbed, very smooth. What did he bring to the team from your perspective?
Well, first of all, Drew was one of my best friends off the field. A lot of people didn't know that, and we ended up when I dislocated my shoulder, we went out and we met two girls. And the second year at the Indiana Twisters, our girlfriends were roommates. So we had actually dated two girls that lived together, and we just had the greatest time on and off the field. Our girlfriends hung out. We hung out together. So, but as far as Drew on the field, he was our best athlete. He was our fastest, strongest player. I would take turns with him shooting from half field, trying to pull out their defense. But he had one of the hardest shots. He had a great heart. And I just wanted to throw in that little story that nobody really remembers or probably knew. But like I said, Drew has a special place in my heart. And he was a little bit wild in the beginning because Jorge wanted him to play in a system, and he was a very athletic player.
Right.
So he could do a lot of stuff unorthodox, dribble two players, take the ball, beat people with speed. So Drew had to sort of take away from his athletic ability, and he had to play very simple and into Jorge's system. And I sort of was helping with that. We had to be a little more robotic in the back. Neil was our guy that would take off with the ball. But I think, me and Drew were the stay-home defenders, shoot from outside, and play very simple. Because we had guys that were world-class players like Bolela. If they were right next to us, we would just give them the ball.
Yeah, smart play there. Okay, last guy. Came about halfway through the 97 season. What did Sean Blakeman add to the mix?
Sean Blakeman, when he was in Sacramento, we had a guy, Dwayne Bryant, in Arizona, and the announcers used to say these two guys need to be in a cage match because they were like WWF wrestling. We had Dwayne was a big black guy, big, strong. He was long haired, looked like a rocker, and the two guys would clash on the boards. And I remember on TV 3 or 4 times, like these two guys belong in a WWF cage match. But he brought a little bit of hard nosed experience. He had a lot of experience from, I think, Sacramento, and he was very good with his left foot, and he just brought a toughness to the team. So not only did we have Neil Gilbert, but now we had another enforcer. So it just brought the team toughness because we had a lot of quick players. Me and Drew were very big and strong, but we were more nice guys. But bringing in him brought a lot of toughness to the team, and he's been a great coach in the Northern California. Started a league. I know he was big in the starting of ECNL and the leagues up in Northern Cal. Blakeman has a big part in Northern Cal soccer.
One of the many, many, many Twisters who have gone on to coaching careers. Now, after that 96 season, the Arizona Sand Sharks came back into the CISL, and it would have been natural for you to say, okay, thank you very much, Indianapolis, I'm going home. But you didn't. You stayed with the Twisters. Why was that?
I had that bond, and when Jorge called me, I wasn't sure if he was going to call me because, I didn't know if he was going to get some other players or maybe get some guys that he thought would fit in better in the system. But he called me, and I got in my Jeep Wrangler with my dad, 4-cylinder soft top, and we drove from Phoenix to Indianapolis in a Jeep Wrangler through Dallas up through Oklahoma, and my dad flew back, but it was a great bonding experience with my dad. And as soon as Jorge called, I was there preseason. I jumped at the chance.
So yeah, it sounds like that that bond that you established that first year was it didn't take much convincing for you to come back to Indianapolis. No. Did you see that big things might happen that second year?
Well, he brought in some more international players. Like you say, the first year was sort of our rookie year. The second year, he filled in the gaps with the players that he needed and the style of players that he needed. So my role was very simple. Cover the best player, but then he brought in some amazing players that fit right into his system. So we were probably the scariest team in the league the second year. And even Rich Ryerson, I remember we were playing Anaheim, and he had a speech. I could hear him. He's like, "They're not Brazil. We can beat them." So I mean, just our fitness level, the way the guys touched the ball. I think there was a 5-6 game stretch where by the first quarter we were winning 6 or 7-1 every game, and nobody. I mean, it was just a clinic. So I was very happy to be on the team.
Yeah, now you were injured for the first 2 games of the season. Those are the only 2 games that you missed as a Twister, but I want to look at the highlights of that season opener, that very first game in Detroit, and get your thoughts, because this game really pointed out what this team could do and what it could be. At the Palace of Auburn Hills, the Twisters jumped on the Detroit Safari early. Alejandro Moreno scored 2 early goals. This was kind of a harbinger of things to come, because Alejandro ends up being the all-time leading goal scorer for the franchise. And here he gets one of a million helpers from Mariano. Mariano said in the last episode, if I was in trouble, I'd just give Alejandro the ball and he would score from everywhere. But that man, Andy Chapman, he came back with 2. And what was it? He was like 36 at this point, but he was so hard to play against. Why?
He played in England. He had the English Premier League background. I mean, he was just the classic finisher. So he might not touch the ball for 10 minutes, and all he needed was 1 touch, 1 volley, 1 rebound, and he would finish the ball. So a lot of people, when they were covering Andy, they would fall asleep or maybe think he's not as threatening. But if you knew who Andy Chapman was, you needed to be on him. Even when we had the ball, we had to cover him.
No doubt. And that's why they called him Superman. Here, Jose Luis Rajano, another great talent, dished to Emilson Soto for the goal. It was obvious that just from this opening night. Now, granted, Detroit was not a very good team that year, but it was obvious that you were going to have a lot of weapons. I love this goal. We've talked about Carlos Zavala. Terry Rowe at the back post, in off his chest. Zavala with the assist with the left boot. The first of 3 straight power play goals the Twisters scored. The last 2 came in the fourth quarter, and you broke the game open and won 9-2. Now, it was just 1 game, but considering how the last season had gone and the heartbreaks you'd had in Detroit before, you mentioned it being a problem. What was the feeling on the team after this first game in 97?
Well, the confidence, adding Carlos Zavala, adding some of these guys, they really made a boost to our team. So I think we had like the first year about 60% of a dream roster was there, and then Jorge went and got the other 40%, which you'll probably be mentioning some of these other names that came on that, like I'm not going to mention any names yet, but that gave us confidence. It gave us the belief that we could win, and to go to another stadium in the opening game and to beat them, especially the Detroit Neon. They had, like you said, Palace of Auburn Hills. It was a hard place to go play, and for us to beat them there, that just propelled us into a great season.
Coming up big in the other guy's building, as they like to say. Now, that said, after 7 games that season, a quarter of the season, the Twisters were just 2-5, but something clicked after that. You won 7 of the next 9, 15 of the last 21. What turned the season around? Was it Jorge's system finally getting there? Was it the addition of the guy? Was anything said? Was there any moment you can point to that turned things around?
I don't know when Mirko Castillo
Yeah,
joined.
after the first game, Mirko came in.
Yeah, so he came in and he needed a couple games. Well, he got into shape quick. So
Yeah.
Mirko wasn't in the best shape. So once Mirko got in shape, which took him a couple of weeks because he had no choice. I mean, you were running
Right.
whether you liked it or not. So even though he had a big pedigree, Mirko got in top shape, and with his finishing skills, now we had a 1-2-3 punch with Moreno, Bolella, and Castillo, and then I think me and Gilbert were in the back, and we just stayed at home. And those guys, it was showtime for them. So I think once those 3 gelled, and then like Zavala got more comfortable, and all the new guys, and like Drew Callahan was new. So like Jorge did a great job of, and he doesn't get enough credit to replacing the missing parts that he needed. And then, like I said, we were one of the top teams in the league the second year.
No doubt. Now, you chipped in with 6 goals the first year, but your charge was defense as the second year, as you said. Now, still, you could contribute the assist here off the set piece. It's nice to be able to dish it to one of those guys. How did you feel about how you were playing at this stage, 5th year in the league on a good team?
Well, I felt I had a good role. So just like I think Patriots in football, Belichick would always say, play your role, do your job. And so a lot of guys knew what their role was. They did their job, and they didn't try to do more than they needed to. So my job was, stay at home, defend, make sure we don't get beat on the counterattack. I was also so we played a diamond when on the man down defense for a 2-minute penalty, and I was the last man, sort of like a sweeper, directing people. So I had a smaller role. I didn't need to score goals because we had one of the strongest offenses in the league. So I think if I was trying to score goals, we might have been caught and got scored on more. So everybody accepted their role and did their job.
As mentioned, the Twisters got hot in that summer of 1997 and won 10 of their final 14 games to get into the playoffs. But what happened next was something no one saw coming. That is after this quick break. You're watching Let's Twist Again.
The Continental Indoor Soccer League is slamming, jamming, blowout soccer with an indoor difference. Part velocity, part contact, part crazy. Untamed, high-scoring action. Get ready for the ride of your lives. CISL soccer is out of control, exploding at arenas across the country. The Continental Indoor Soccer League. It's soccer with an attitude.
This is episode 15 of Let's Twist Again, our monthly deep dive live streaming podcast in the Indiana Twisters of the Continental Indoor Soccer League in the late 1990s. I'm Ken Tomash. I was the Twisters radio broadcaster and media relations director. Mate Kozul was a stalwart defender for the Twisters both of those years. So, Mate, what was the team's attitude going into that playoff series, first round against Houston?
The first round was at home, correct?
Yep.
So I actually, with 4 minutes left, well, we'll wait for that one.
We'll get to that.
The attitude was, they had Paul Doherty, which was one of the best, another English Premier League guy, I think, top scorer in the league. They had David Banks, former Sockers guy. They had a very explosive roster as well. Every time we played them, we didn't know what we were going to get, and we knew it was going to be a battle. So we played them tough that game, and I think with 4 minutes left, I actually hit the post. And that was my luck, and I could have put us up by 1, and then I think they ended up squeezing the game out. But we felt confident, and but just things just didn't go our way. I think we were a little bit nervous. We had a great crowd. It's just like, I think just being in the playoffs, just the energy, the intensity, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, let's take a look at what did happen on that night in early October 1997 as the Twisters hosted the Hot Shots. Houston scored first, but then Alejandro Moreno tied things 8.5 minutes in with this bullet that eluded Terry Waldorf. The Hot Shots scored twice more in the first period, as you'll see coming up here. This is Arturo Castellan getting his second of the quarter. Nebo Bandovic got the other, and it was 3-1 Hot Shots after one. But this was the key moment of the game, though, I think, and many people say this as well. Second quarter, Carlos Zavala's knee gave way on that dodgy turf that was laid over the hockey ice surface. What did you guys lose when you lost Carlos for the game and, as it turned out, for the series?
Yeah, Carlos was a leader in the back. I mean, he would humiliate the other team. The forwards would try to pressure him, and he would fake the shot. They would turn their back. He'd fake it again. He would just make the forwards and their team miserable, and that gave us a lot of composure on the ball and his distribution out of the back and his deadly left foot. So and his leadership skills. So when we lost Carlos, we lost 30-40% of our defense. So we did adjust a little bit, but we never recovered from that. Going into a playoff game like that, you want to be full strength. And when you're losing, you're one of your top, if not your smartest, most skilled defender. That meant a lot.
So he did come back after that big blow. Mirko Castillo with his specialty, the shootout. Didn't go off the wall on that one, but just put it past Waldorf. No deception. That made it 3-2 Houston at the half. Third quarter, as we take a look at this one more time, Mirko, his normal shootout procedure was to go to the wall and then tap in his own rebound. But that time he took Terry Waldorf, just took it straight. So third quarter, guess who? Mariano Balela, last month's guest, right place, right time, left foot to tie things at 3. And then Matt Blackburn, another previous guest on the show, who can reveal now and has, 30 years later almost, that he never actually touched the ball on this one. He will get credit for this goal, but it goes in off Mike Britton of Houston. That put Indiana up 4-3, and sometimes it's all about how well you sell it, maybe not necessarily how well you score it. You mentioned Paul Daugherty, and early in the fourth quarter in this game, he was the league MVP that year. He was so tough to defend, in part because he was so small. As we'll take one more look here at Matt Blackburn scoring with that big old cast on his hand. Daugherty, though, the league MVP, wee lad, but a great guy and a great player. So crafty. He snuck this one in here in front, and that tied the game at 4. Now, this was a pretty physical series, wasn't it? There was some testiness, and we'll see here as you kind of step in when Neil Gilbert gets a little bit salty. You step in to try to play peacemaker.
Yeah, that we almost got in a fight there. I had to hold Neil Gilbert back because I knew what he would do if he got near the guy. And like you said, it was physical. There was Zaid Allen, and I think it was just the intensity of the game. A lot of people compare it to some people say the regular season in the NBA and the intensity of the playoffs. Same thing with this. I mean, the crowd was rocking, the stadium was loud, the music was going, the intensity was there. So it was so physical, so fast. It was 30% faster than a normal game.
And that was Zaid Allen, the aforementioned Zaid Allen, scoring to put Houston up with 3.5 minutes left. You guys had gone 11-3 at home during the regular season, but could not overcome that, whether it was jitters, whether it was whatever, the fact that Houston's obviously an outstanding team. They get the 6th attacker goal here. 6-4 Houston was the final in this one. So it put you in the unenviable position of having to go to Houston and win twice, and you'd never won there ever. In fact, there'd been some nightmare games there. I remember a 9-1 loss there. But to the team's credit, you went to the summit, put yourself in position to advance by winning the second game, scoring 5 times in the fourth quarter to win 7-4. Rob Nichols, who had 2 goals, including the game winner. Rob, if you're out there watching, please get in touch. We want to find you. So that set up the 20-minute mini game to decide things. Now, 2 things. You were the fittest team in the league, as you said, and you did all that running and all the training and the diet and everything exactly for a situation like that, 20-minute mini game, but without Zavala. And Mariano had done his knee late in that second game. That was just too much to overcome. Is that basically what happened?
Yeah, to rewind a little bit, before we went to Houston, we had a team meeting, and it was the most intense team meeting. I think even the general manager was there,
Do
Jorge,
tell.
everybody there, and we were sitting there. Nobody knew what to say. We just lost. We're going to go to Houston. Well, Neil Gilbert has a bandana on, and he goes, "We're going to go to Houston, and we're going to bleep 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 beat Houston in Houston." And we all looked around like Neil just knew that what we were going to do, and we wanted revenge. And when we saw what Neil said, we all believed it. And when we went over there, that first game, we were a little bit behind, and we won that game. It took us into the playoff game, the 20-minute mini game. But like you said, at that point, Mariano Torres ACL late in that playoff game, so we were a little bit thin in that 20-minute game. And I think the way we lost in the 20-minute mini game, the ball hit the glass, and then it hit Kluba in the back of the head, and it went into the goal. It was like the weirdest goal that put us under. So it just, like you said, we never quit. We were down by 2 goals in the second playoff game. We came back. We beat them in the Summit. Nobody even ever played a 20-minute mini game. They did it probably to save time and
Sure.
money at the time. So we're playing this mini game. Nobody knows what to expect. We just beat them. We just beat Houston in Houston. And I think if it was a normal game and we had time to prepare, but the emotion of beating them in Houston and then just taking them to the third game, that was just incredible. So,
but then it was over. We didn't know it at the time. That was the end. That was the last time you guys would ever play together. And then the league went under entirely just before Christmas. We can never know, but what do you think might have happened had there been a 1998 season for the Indiana Twisters?
Well, we didn't know, but when we went into the locker room, Jorge, and I can understand why he was so tough on us, and some of the motivational things that he did to us that were very good for us. Is he apologized, and we were all laying on the ground in the locker room, sweating, no life in us at all, just devastated. We lost, season's over. And Jorge told us all that he loved us, and he said he didn't mean to be as tough as he was on us, but that that he had to be, and that was his style, and things like that. So looking back, when someone's tough on you, you might not like it at the moment, but they become your best friend, and those become your best moments in life. So all of us, there were times where we didn't like what Jorge was doing, or the tactics, or the conditioning. But when we look back, we look at him as a father figure, as a best friend, because anyone that continued soccer afterwards used his same tactics on. I mean, sometimes I'm yelling and screaming at halftime, and people think I'm crazy, but there's a method to my madness, and I pull a little bit more out of the players I can. And a lot of times I'm just imitating Jorge.
So with the CISL demise, there went summer indoor soccer. There was still the NPSL was still there. Did you think of continuing your indoor career? A lot of guys did. A lot of Twisters ended up like in Detroit, and guys ended up playing together. They went on to play longer in indoor. You took the other route, went back outdoors. Why was that, and what happened next?
Well, they offered me an assistant coach, director of player personnel for the USL team in Phoenix, and so it was Arizona Saguaros. So I took the position as an assistant coach, and in the preseason we lost a local semi-pro men's league game. He put the pro team in the men's league game just for thinking we would win it, and we lost it, and the whole team sort of had a mutiny against the coach, and so the coach got fired, and they put me as the coach and as a player coach, and a couple kids quit that had an allegiance to that coach. And there was a big article in the Arizona Republic, like, who is Matei, and how can he coach as a player? And the next day there was an article saying, where I played: Croatia, Belgium, Indiana Twisters. So, and then my assistant coaches were the best players from Yavapai, local guys, legends from Arizona. So I put together a great staff. The number one thing I had going for me is I knew my generation. So I was a player coach at 26. So I knew who the best players were. They were my friends, and everybody wanted to play on this USL pro team. So I knew everyone I needed to call, and everyone said yes. So I actually created a dream team from Arizona local players, guys that were captained at Stanford University, Jason Vanacore, Randy Soderman, Donnie Gaylord, Mark Curlin, Edson Rico, Aaron Muth from UCLA, Kenny Wright from UCLA. So we had the best Latin team, all-stars, Jose Corona. So I knew who the best players were. I got them all to play. And being a center back, I was able to coach. If I would have been a midfielder or a forward, I wouldn't have been able to see the game. But as a center back, if I saw outside mid wasn't getting back, or I saw someone's work rate was lower, then after a while, I figured out a rotation. I subbed the wings a lot because I needed fresh wings. I had such a great Harold Calvo and Alex Pogman. I had two great forwards, and at halftime I would switch them with two other great forwards. So I always had fresh forwards, fresh wingers, great players. Milo Iniguez from Brophy High School Player of the Year. One of the best players probably ever in Arizona. My hat off to Milo Iniguez, and he was a former Sand Shark as well. So this team was built from former CISL Sand Sharks, Arizona High School, 5 high school players of the year: Kevin Barry, Aaron Muth, Donnie Gaylord, a couple other guys. So I had the tools to succeed.
So yeah, you succeed. You did. You were coach of the year in the league in 1998. Later, the LA Fireballs moved to Tucson. You must have been doing some commuting there, I'm guessing. You're coaching the Tucson team, but then you ended up as a youth coach here in Arizona, which you have been for many, many years now, quite successfully. A lot of the Twisters, as we mentioned, wound up as youth coaches as well. We'll get to that in a second. What is your philosophy? Like, how do you try to prepare young players to be the best they can be to keep moving forward in their careers?
Well, Jorge always said, like, nobody wants to miss a goal. So if someone misses a goal, we never got really upset at anyone. But what he did get angry at was your effort. So what I do is I coach effort, because you can fix effort right away. I could get into someone's face. I can demand effort, more intensity, more desire. I can get that out of a player. Skill comes slowly, and that comes with repetition. And so I'm a teddy bear at practice, and I work on a lot of skill. But during a game, I do high press. I copy the Indiana Twisters way. High press in your face all game long. So if someone's walking on the field, I sub them out. If you're on the field, you're going 100 miles an hour, you're in the other team's face. If you want to rest, go sit on the bench. And that's my philosophy. And I have a great relationship with the players because they know I just want effort. If they miss a goal, miss a pass, I don't get on them. But they know I want them to get back, fight hard, tuck in, team defense, things like that. So, like I said, I run fun practices, but during the games, I'm very intense. But the players accept it because they know themselves they can give more and they can hustle more. So if they're not hustling, I just remind them to go a little faster.
Do you let them mix proteins and carbs or no?
Yeah, no, I don't tell them what to eat. So that part I haven't got too far into that aspect. But as far as like the philosophy, I use a lot of the Indiana Twisters philosophy.
Now, let me ask you this. High school soccer kind of gets dismissed a lot as a developmental platform. Some say it's unnecessary or even counterproductive. There's the social aspect of it. Where do you stand on kids playing high school soccer, either instead of or as well as playing club soccer?
I think it's only a 2-month season for high school. In Arizona, it's November and December. And I think it's very important for the people that they go to school with to see their talent. So if they just play club, nobody will see them. There's parents and coaches at club games, but I think it's important for their confidence, for the students that they go to school with, for them to get a varsity jacket to represent their school. There's a whole part of that, an American, like some Europeans don't get that. And to grow up in America, to play on your varsity team, the cheerleaders, the pep rallies, that's something that you can't replace. So everyone's got to have a childhood. So some of these clubs, they want you to play year round. In my opinion, is you are playing and you're getting some confidence and you're getting recognized by your peers. So that goes a long way. So I promote playing in high school.
Now, the fact so many of the Twisters went on to coach means sometimes that your worlds collide. And that happened for you earlier this year when you found your team going up against a former teammate's team. Tell us what happened there.
Well, I was in Dallas Cup. It was my first time coaching in Dallas Cup, and Ashton Villa, Um, there was Botafogo, Brazil, Monterrey, the professional team, Toluca, Mexico. All the top MLS teams were there, youth academies. So I'm in this tournament, and I looked at the roster. We're playing a team from Monterrey called Super Cumbres, but I looked at the coaching staff, and Mario's name wasn't on there. He's probably so high in the club that they didn't just put his name on one little team. He's probably the director of the club. So I didn't think of ever seeing Mariano, but I did look to see just in case. I didn't see his name, so we're the last game of the preliminary rounds. We're playing his team, and I went to go coach, shake the hand of the coach, which I normally do, and I'm shaking his hand and I'm looking at him, and we both wouldn't let go of our hands, and we're staring at each other for about 30 seconds, and then we realized who each other was, and it was the most amazing thing I ever experienced in my life. Seeing somebody that I haven't seen in 30 years, a great friend of mine, great teammate, and then as soon as we realized who we were, we said, "Get the teams together. Let's take a picture." We actually gave each player on his team one of our warm-up shirts, and so the kids on his team are holding up the warm-up shirts. We're taking the team photo. This is before the game. So, that was a special moment in my coaching career. So.
Mariano said you guys were talking so much, the game kicked off and you guys were still talking and forgot you had to coach a game.
Yeah. And, his team made it to the final, and they had some really great players. We it was 0-0 second half. We found a way to contain them, but they got a couple goals the first half, and like you said, it was Mariano's style of play. I mean, those kids had footwork, they had flair. So it was a pleasure to coach in that international tournament, but it was also a pleasure to coach against Mariano Balella, our captain, our former Indiana Twisters best player.
Yeah, and he was a great guest on the show as well. Very thoughtful, very insightful. It was a joy to have him on. Now, you mentioned you and Drew Callahan dating roommates. You were notoriously single when you were the Twisters, put it that way for our audience. But especially the guys you played with now and people who knew you then will be happy to know now that you're a family guy. Tell us about your family.
Yeah, I have a great family. My mom and dad and two sisters. My mom and dad are still with us and healthy. And we live on the same block, so my family is very close. My two sisters have condos about a couple miles away. I have a 15-year-old son, Luca, and he's 6'4", 240. So I tell him he's going to be the next lineman for Alabama. And I have little Nicola, which is left-footed like Mariano, and he's going to be my soccer player. So I have two great sons. My family is wonderful. We're very close, and everybody's in Phoenix. In the Phoenix Scottsdale area.
From what you've told us over the course of this hour, it sounds like your dad was a really big influence on not only in your career but your life.
Yeah, he was came from a little village, and he left Yugoslavia while it was communism, and immigrated to Chicago and became started as a janitor. So he didn't speak English. Came here with a suitcase in South Chicago, one of the toughest neighborhoods in South Chicago. And we were the janitors of a high-rise building, and if someone moved out, he would paint the apartment. If someone's toilet got clogged, he would fix it. He was mowing the lawns, things like that. So he immigrated, became very, very appreciative of the chance to make something in America. Worked 30 years in Honeywell in a factory with my mom. So just the American dream, working hard, installing that in his kids. Everyone, my sisters both have great jobs. And like I said, my dad was the backbone of that, and my mom was such a sweetheart. She's still cooking and cleaning and just the glue of the whole family. It's very similar to an Italian type family, the Kozul. So
very cool. All right, now it's time for the ever popular One Crazy Story, where we ask each of our guests to recall just one memorable moment from a life spent in the game. What is yours?
Well, we this one's a little bit more for the adults, but we in San Diego, Jorge sort of quarantined us to the hotels. So and sometimes this was the day after the game, and we wanted to go out a little bit, so we actually had to we were coordinating with each other, and Jorge would he would monitor the hotel, and he would walk around and make sure we were all in our rooms. And we snuck out a couple of times in San Diego, got to go out a little bit, but we always made sure we were back in at a decent time. But it was fun to like evade Jorge and get away with that a little bit. But like I said, those were fun, pure times. And it was always after the game. It wasn't before the game. Before the game, we were always disciplined, and preparation was very important. But sometimes after the game, we needed to let off a little bit of steam. And I just remember the one time in San Diego, Jorge was doing laps around the hotel, making sure everybody was still in the hotel, and we snuck out and had a good time. So that was great.
Everyone has a story about trying to evade Jorge. Mirko had a great one as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll get you out of here on this. It's been almost 30 years since the team you see here took the field. Hopefully we can pull off a reunion next spring or summer. The fact we're still talking about this means this was a really special time. What sticks with you about the time you spent in Indianapolis?
Well, number one, the location where we lived. So we lived in Carmel, Indiana, and that's like really nice area, beautiful landscape. We lived in a great condominium complex, and we were about 10 minutes away from the practice facility. So living in Carmel in the summer, being treated by the fans. My favorite thing was going to Market Square Arena. It was an NBA arena, and while we were warming up, hearing the cars pull up, the fans come into the stadium, the music going, the camaraderie that we had. We used to go to Monterrey, Mexico twice a year, and we actually beat them in Monterrey, Mexico. We'd walk the markets there. Our trips to Dallas. We took a bus to Washington, D.C. As a team. We flew everywhere first class. This was Major League Soccer before Major League Soccer. And in the United States, indoor soccer was the big thing before MLS. So, the indoor league ended in 1997, and MLS started in 1996, 1997. So one league ended, the other league started. So we were pioneers of the pro league. And we were, if this team would have been, if MLS would have started 5 years earlier, a lot of the guys on our team would have played in the MLS. So, and some guys did. So not only with the family, that atmosphere that Jorge installed, but the people that were on the team. Mariano Balella, Jose Luis Rojano, Scott Lawler, Pato, Matt Blackburn, Zavala, all these guys, Drew Callan, they were great people. So to be with them day in, day out, it was a family. It was more than soccer. We worked hard. Kluba was, unbelievable too. And one last thing for me was we actually went to Arizona to play Arizona Sandstrucks, and we beat them 7-5. So
right.
For me, I had 600 kids that I coached at the game, and I was so nervous. And Indiana Twisters, I was telling everybody, we gotta win this game. We gotta win this game. They're like, don't worry, Matei. Don't worry, Matei. We got it. So I just remember doing the possession thing. The other team tried to pressure us. We made them look silly. The offense took care of the goals. We won 7-5. So that was the highlight of my life, was playing against my old team in my hometown, beating them. And so I had a little thing on my former teammates on the Sandstrike. So they still have to live with that today. So Indiana Twisters was one of the best experiences of my life. And I think for everybody that was part of it.
I think you're right. Scott Lawler actually scored 2 goals in that game. You mentioned Lawler, and you mentioned John Kluba. Shout out to John. He's recovering from having a knee replacement. You yourself had a hip replacement a few years back, right? It sucks to get old, doesn't it?
No, you know what? Technology now. I have my left hip. I replaced my left hip, and I have the best hip replacement guy in the country, Dr. Chow. And he did the super path where they do a small incision. They use a robotic arm. So my left hip got replaced, and then my right hip got replaced a year later.
Wow.
I feel 20 years younger.
You're bionic.
I have 2 titanium hips, and I tell you, I can't feel any better. I have no arthritis. I feel like I got 20 years back. I feel like I can play. Just a little extra weight, but as far as my hips and my knees, I hope John has a great recovery. But if anybody needs a new hip, I have the guy for you.
Do you set off the metal detector at the airport?
I do. The one that goes in a circle, that only detects something outside your body. But the metal detector, they always go off, and then I tell them I got 2 titanium hips. They want them, and then they just let me go. So
Well, the fact that we are still talking to each other and able to do a show like this about a team that lasted 2 years, 3 decades ago before it folded says something. But what the bigger issue thing is that, like you mentioned, you and Rich and I are still in touch. I'm in touch with all these guys. This show has been an opportunity to reconnect with folks and to have really cool conversations with people. And hopefully we can get back together, because it has been, for some folks, we haven't seen each other since that 97 season. And if we can pull off a reunion, man, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, like you said, we're a family, so a reunion is in order. And every single player that I've talked to really appreciates your time and effort, Ken, and everything that you've done for the team, and this reuniting everybody with this podcast and the website and the social media. So I can't be any happier. Every couple of days I'll look at what you have on there, something new. It keeps us all connected, and with social media and hopefully the reunion next year, you've done a wonderful job, Ken, and I can't thank you as much.
Thank you. Hey, U.S. Mexico, October 3rd here. Will I see you there?
Yes, let's see if we can sit together.
Okay, let's do that. All right, Mate Kozul, thanks for your time, brother. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
All right, next month, we're going to look at the Twisters from a different perspective. 2 members of the talented dance team, the Windjammers, Stevie Kirsch and Mindy Winkler, will be our guests. That is on Tuesday, September the 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern. These were 10 very talented young women who kept the crowds at Market Square Arena engaged and entertained. We will go behind the scenes with them, get their memories, find out how they earned their spots on the team, how they trained, what their favorite routines were, how they saw the seasons unfold, and how they and others on the team have gone on to successful careers in their own life past their entertainment careers. So join us next month as the Windjammers dance their way into episode 16 of Let's Twist Again. It is said about 1% of podcasts get as far as episode 16. It's the only time in my life I've been part of the 1%. I have you all to thank for that. Thanks to Mate Kozul. Thanks to you all for watching. As always, stay safe, stay cool, stay twisted.